This video is brought to you by Midway USA. Support the channel by choosing Midway for your shooting and outdoor supplies.
Oh my gosh, it's cold.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so, Henry, is this going to be redemption for the K2 or confirmation?
I don't know. We'll find out. Let's go.
All right, let's start at 150. Impact.
Uh-oh.
Dead on.
Okay.
Very good.
Oh, I have it on the small gas setting too.
Do you need to adjust that?
No, it's on the shred mode.
Shred mode. All right, let's try 200. Impact. Impact. 250, go ahead. Impact, right edge, perfect elevation. Off the left edge. Impact, dead on.
Okay. I pushed too much to the left, sorry.
Yeah. We're on at 300. Impact, lower third of the target. Impact.
Okay, that means I'm definitely setting it on 3. And the next one I'll still try to use a belly hold.
Yeah, let's start with the belly hold with the 300 setting at 350, okay?
Okay.
All right, 350. All right, that was just low. Impact, bottom right corner. Okay, that was off the left by about 3/4 of a target. Good elevation. Impact.
Oh my gosh.
That's cleared.
Does not like this magazine, dude.
Elevation is good. You were just off the left.
Man, this magazine. Okay, it's all on the left side feed column for this thing.
Why don't you just go to the other mag?
All right, I'll go to the short mag for now. It's a 20 round mag, YouTube. Where was that one?
That was elevation good. Off the left edge by maybe 1/4 of a target. Just scraped by him on the left, okay?
Okay.
Impact at his neck. Good windage. Just off the left. Scraped by 1 inch. Full target to the right. Elevation's good on these though. You got it. Impact.
Okay. Yeah, this is absolutely a magazine issue. So today as I left, I just grabbed magazines out of old Alice pouches that I had. And some of those were the wrong answer.
Oh no. All right, we're on at 450. Okay, just off the left edge, 1 inch left. Elevation looked good. That's an impact. Impact.
Okay. Let me load a few more into this mag. It's the one that was up here that I told you we shouldn't use.
Why did you grab it? And use it?
I'm sorry, it was just the most convenient magazine next to me, and I just grabbed it. That was the bad magazine.
I isolate Henry's bad magazine, and he specifically goes and picks the bad magazine to use.
Sorry, that turns out that was the one that Josh identified as bad earlier and tried to keep away from me, and I found the bad magazine.
All right, we're on at 500. We're going with a belly hold, and we're ready. Okay, that was at his head level, just left of his head. So you went over his left shoulder. Impact. Impact.
Nice.
All right, brother, let's go.
Redemption.
Indeed, indeed. Now look, for the viewers, you and I were talking a little bit more about what the holds were and the sight settings than we might otherwise do in a normal video. Why don't you sort of just describe why?
Yeah, so the sight settings, for some reason, for how we were shooting it was not corresponding to my shooting style. I don't know why. The elevation just did not correspond well. I ended up using a base hold for most of the sight settings, and that way it gave me the maximum amount of target to hit. That's basically, I zeroed it to where I aimed at the bottom of the target and it would hit somewhere on the top of the target. So I had plenty of elevation to drop as it went out. But Josh, I think a couple things, like kind of like the M4, the K2 was an early rifle that we did.
One of the first.
Yeah, I brought it out that one day and told Josh, let's shoot this thing. Josh was like, okay. Yeah, it seems to work fairly well for this style of course. I don't think I did it justice back then. I think part of it was me not having the time on it. Part of it, Josh, I think you and I have increased our skill in both shooting and spotting and working out some of these problems or questions. And so there's more to talk about as far as this goes, because we didn't do a proper debrief last time. Josh, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, let's go over and do that proper discussion.
I'd have to call this out, though. I appreciate my friend Jack over in South Korea for sending me the Rock Navy MP uniform top. And I learned that they don't call them Master at Arms. They're actually also called military police in the Rock Navy. So, interesting tidbit for you guys. We will see you at the debrief. Now this is the rifle that we just shot on range. And the rear sight settings are 1.2, 3, 4, and 5, which I would presume is 100 and 200, 300, 400, and 500. Now, thanks to my friend Calvin over at Firepower United, we talked quite a bit, and he noticed that yes, the current K2s are actually 2.5, 250 meters, 4, 5, and 6. The rear sight pattern matches the DR200, which is the post-band model. Yes, we'll talk about this particular rifle kitted up with mostly Korean modernization components in the next practical accuracy. But for this, you'll see the DR200, even though it's blank on the top two, it does correspond to 500 and 600. Now, I know that the elevation changes are different between the two because I went ahead and used a set of calipers to measure the depth and how far the rear sight would come up on elevation, and I've actually charted it, and you can see the data right here. The rear sight that we saw, the rifle that we just shot, it's actually a lot more gradual than the later 2.5 rear sights. Now, does this matter? Yes and no. A couple more changes I saw. This is a 1 to 12 twist barrel, which some of the later pre-bands that came in had 1 to 7.3 twist barrels that could handle the K100, which is their version of the M855 62 grain ball. On a minor note, some of the machining you'll see right here is a little different. The takedown latch doesn't have the safety swivel. So there seems to be some design changes that took place between what I presume this is an early Patron K2 towards the current Patron K2. Take that as you may with a grain of salt. I think the rifle still performed fairly well, 25 out of 40. So we'll talk more about that at the debrief, however. I have another segment I'm going to talk to you about right now.
Well, hello there. You just caught me enjoying some of the small pleasures of life with a few of my soul brothers. I hope you're enjoying the show thus far. Shows like this, they're brought to you by Slate Black Industries. But more importantly, we have the support of the patrons of Patreon and the supporters on Utreon. And that's right. This magnificent group of men and women, they support us financially, intellectually, and most importantly, emotionally. So today, I'd like to invite you to come, join us, become one of us. Together, we can unlock some of the mysteries in small arms development. But if you cannot, that's okay. We completely understand it. We'd be just as happy to see you down there in the comments section. But for now, let's get on with the show.
Okay, so I've got to interject a little bit here before we get into it, because this was actually filmed, the debrief was filmed on the road, and right before I had left, I threw the K2 and the modernized K2, which we're calling the K2 Charlie 9er, into the back of my car with some delicious delights for Josh to sample as we did the debrief. And I had remembered the results of the K2 a little bit differently from what it actually was. So I'm going to interject even more later on down the road when we talk about the actual scoring of the K2, because we thought it did a lot more worse, but we were looking at the wrong run, the first run, and had an idea that it didn't do as well. Anyways, see you in a bit.
Ladies and gents, welcome into the debrief. This one, a little bit different, a little old school, a little throwback.
Yeah.
As you can see, Henry and I are on the road, getting things done, doing the things. But I know we didn't want to let anything go to waste, and you told me you had a great Korean story for me.
Yes. So, a while ago, it's a hot minute at this point, one of the first rifles that's been shown on the show was the lovely Korean K2. We do have a pre-ban K2 right here. It's one of my favorite rifles. We wanted to bring it back onto the range and do a debrief with some delicious, oops, I got the powder all over the place, shin noodles, which is a classic Korean ramen that you would get out there. Now, this is, however, a two-part series, because on part 2, we're going to show a very spicy version of the K2, and we're going to have very spicy ramen to go with that. But as any civilized person eating ramen would do, and maybe this is not something Josh usually does.
Ramen in the hotel room, a little outside of my normal repertoire.
Josh, tell me you didn't grow up with Asian parents on family trips without telling me you didn't grow up with Asian families on road trips. But we were going to make what's affectionately called army stew in Korea, which is really ramen with bits of whatever that you wanted to throw into ramen. We're going to dress it up a little bit.
Spam right from the can, huh?
Yes, of course. I mean, now, Koreans don't typically have spam as much as us Southern Asian people. I can't help getting the sodium in my system a little bit more, even though I already have a little bit of a sodium overload. And with my trusty Bundeswehr mess kit, I shall add a little bit of protein to this diet. Now, Army Stew is not the prettiest. But we can start talking about the K2, Josh. So
I'm just enamored by what's happening here.
it's the best. It's the most appealing. Now, let me put the spam away real quick.
So Henry, when we first shot this, much like many of the very first runs we had on the show, there was probably what I would say is a skill gap of some degree. Like, you're still shooting and hitting stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, whether it was from a spotting perspective or, I guess maybe a cross-functional use perspective on a variety of different guns. While we could do it, maybe we didn't do it as well as we can do it now. And so we wanted to bring, again, one of the first runs that we ever did, the K2,
With kimchi.
back out on the course. But unlike some of the other rifles we've shot and reshot, the K2 didn't perform...
How much do you want?
One scoop.
Okay.
One very small scoop to appease. Very good. Thank you.
Very much missing out, Josh. I'll give you some kimchi as well. So anyways, skill gap. We are addressing a skill gap issue that potentially existed before.
Well, but we didn't actually see a material improvement
Yeah.
when we took this one back out.
So once again, I'll interject a little bit here, and apologies in advance. Josh and I remember the wrong scoring and how the rifle performed the day of. 25 out of 40, respectable, which reflects well with the 2 to 2.5 MOA group size. However, I did remember that during the time of shooting, the rear sight and the elevation didn't match up perfectly to how it was ballistically performing. Don't know if that had anything to do with the fact that we were mismatching a different type of ammunition source to the Korean rifle. You guys tell me if you guys have more experience in it. But we'll get back to the show right here. This is still a good, functional military rifle, even with that accuracy. And
What are you adding now?
Seaweed. I mean, you eat sushi. This is nothing special to you. Here, now you have your army stew. Would you like it with a fork or chopsticks?
I suppose I'll take a fork.
Okay. Here you go. German fork.
Deutschland.
Mazola. Eating it with a German fork. Shall I get sushi for you to complete the trio?
Bund.
Yes. So, the K2 though, let's bring it into the frame a little bit. The K2, I've really liked the K2. You know, I like things for value sometimes, but I've liked it more than just its base value. The story behind the K2 is fairly fascinating. I sometimes when I look back at some of our older content, and this is OG, really old.
Like 2016, 2017 9-hole, right?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like this is a story that we've got to make a new classic on now that we have the spicy K2. But the K2 itself, the lineage is so fascinating. And it speaks so much about how the Koreans, they're an enterprising group, but also very practical with what they have. Because back then, post-Korean War, I mean, they didn't have a lot. In fact, the South Koreans started in a worse position than the North Koreans post-war. So when the South Koreans, I think we talked a little bit about this in the K1 video, when they initially had the M16A1s that were given to them, they had the blueprints to manufacture their M16s as well. And this is going in past Cold War, past the M14 generation, with all the Korean War weapons. They wanted to modernize into the modern days. And with the M16A1 machinery, TDP and everything, they were, however, held under royalty fees that they had to pay Colt per rifle manufactured. And they also couldn't export these things. When you deal with contracts, I would not say this is a good contract to take. If you had to set up manufacturing, but you were restricted to paying royalties and not being able to manufacture these for foreign sales. So coming up with an indigenous design was something that I think was in the books that they wanted to make. But the cool thing is how much of this is not only, it's not only just, let's say, a lot of people know it's an amalgamation of an M16 with an AK, because if you bump it apart, very clearly you will see the AK piece, like the AK recoil spring. You'll see the top end of an AK with the bottom end of an M16 bulk carrier group. The fact that they were able to use a lot of the M16A1's machinery and manufacturing blueprint to make an amalgamation of the AK and the AR in this fashion. And a lot of people will say, oh, well, the FNC is kind of like that. Manual of arms wise, yes, but the actual weapon system operation is very much no. So them being able to put this together is fascinating for where they were in that historical time and having that manufacturing power. And ultimately, this has somewhat become a national symbol for Korea. So that's why when I looked at this, I was like, yeah, the K1 is cool. The K2 is more so the generation that the Koreans wanted to make their own mark. They wanted to make their own symbol. And there's a huge thing, especially during this time frame. Nowadays, you see everyone adopting AR systems. Like the French adopting the 416 is one of those things that really is a marking stone in showing how much the world has stepped away from indigenous designs.
Sure.
And this is one of those really interesting indigenous designs that exists out there. That's kind of crazy it came into the States, and I don't see any more coming in.
I was going to say, are they still coming in? Or
No,
these are long since
Yeah, they're done.
done.
They're still being manufactured by S&T Motive. So as fate were to have it, S&T Motive has set up an American manufacturing facility, according to their booth at SHOT Show 2025. And all of this was filmed prior to SHOT Show 2025. So, when we say it's not going to happen, it turns out it is closer to happening. Although we haven't seen the rifles out here, and I certainly do hope we see it, because they do have manufacturing plans based out of Las Vegas. Yeah, we'll see. Let's hope to follow up on it. They still could bring the DR200s in, so the ban ones. The post-ban ones. They technically could still bring them in, but I don't think there's any desire from them to bring it in. But I mean, we've shot this quite a bit on the channel.
Yeah.
I think some of the information really needs a little bit of refreshing, but I think more so the biggest thing to this is looking in the future, right? So the Koreans, this was an amazing indigenous design that they took. Please. This is an amazing indigenous design that they took.
He's remembered the ramen.
Yes, it is good. But I think sort of looking into the future set, past that, what did they do on modernization, right? What were the big things that the Koreans really complained about this? Okay, so I actually ended up talking to our friend Jack, whom he asked us to mask his face. So I am forced to using an avatar to help conceal his identity. But still, interesting insights from the ROK forces right here coming up. Okay, so let me dial this back. For us in the States to find a K2, and I'm talking about a pre-ban K2, not one of the K2s, not one of the DR200s, but even the DR200, I'd say, they've become quite desirable to own in the US. They are not easily found. And so for people who own them, they're quite proud of owning the Korean K2 series of rifles. My understanding, however, for you guys in Korea, ROK Army, ROK Navy, ROK Marines, the K2 does not necessarily have the same desirability as it does in the US. Why so? Why?
I'd actually turn the question around in a slightly different manner, in that saying, why would one think that the K2 is undesirable to most Koreans? And to answer that, you have to understand that we're not a volunteer military. We're a conscript army, which means 99% of those that actually end up in, like, say, Army, Navy, Maritime Police, or whatever, they don't have a choice on their firearms. They just get this stuff issued, and that's it. And because they only have that sample group to go with, they don't really have anything else to, like, contrast it with. Say, in my case, since I was an armory guy, I actually was able to touch not only K2, the M16, but also the K1A as well, because we had a small number of those things in storage. I wonder how many guys actually have this kind of experience that I get, because I'm pretty sure not a whole bunch of guys that are out there actually get this experience, like going from the M16 to K2, and in one case actually getting the K1 to do sentry duty on, like, base security drills.
Let's look at the K2 first. Like, from a training perspective, if you were to bring conscripts out, Army, Marines, Navy, if you were to bring any of those conscripts out and train them on the K2, what would you expect for that conscript to be able to do with a K2? What's the longest engagement distance they're typically able to hit in what you've seen?
So if I remember right from the days of my basic, you were expected to hit out to 300. Is because out to 300, yeah, you could hit it, but they don't really expect you to hit that great with it, because it's not just you that's using it, but there's also, like, at least a couple dozen guys who've actually worked with those things, and probably the rifling is not going to be that great, kind of like the M16A2 you had during basic.
So was the K2 made with the idea that it would be maintained until the unit entirely falls apart?
Basically being an amalgamation of an AK, a stoner, be an AR-15 or an 18, and then some other parts that are from our design. I'd say yes, especially with these things, literally, unless you, like, bury it into a mud and just leave it there for, like, 3 months, it genuinely would run. Even though the experience is not going to be great, as long as the individual soldier does their routine maintenance on the thing, it will run. It might not shoot good, it might not be the perfect gun that you would want it to, but it will get the job done in a pinch.
Yeah. Looking at the K2, I mean, if you were issued this in 2024, Josh, as a Korean conscript,
Sad panda,
how would you feel?
Yeah. So I suppose I'll start by just talking briefly about what shooting this feels like.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like shooting an M16. It's quite a bit harsher, I would say, than what shooting an M16 is like. Even the A1, like the original one.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
This has a bit more punch, a bit more snap, a bit more recoil to it. Granted, it's 5.56, so it's not like that crazy, but you can feel a material difference from a 20-inch, a 20-inch AR to this with rifle gas going into a piston system like this. This does not feel like a 5.56 AK. Right?
5.56 AKs feel smoother than this, I think.
Yeah, much. I would agree, much smoother.
But
so it's an interesting, like, again, it's not like fully tuned or whatever else.
Well, when you shot it though, back in the day, I actually had it on the military gas port setting. So you can actually drop the gas port to a small gas port and shoot it as well. So it's just a caveat that that what you experienced was what a Korean soldier would experience in the field. Now, to the Korean populace, just the silhouette of this, the Korean male military-aged populace, just the silhouette of this thing, for some can conjure up some PTSD. Because it's very much a non-volunteer conscript system in Korea. And to many of the Korean men's disapproval, some of them do end up having to serve months in the Korean military, even though they don't want to. And so just looking at this, they're like, get that out of my face. That's sort of the sentiment to it. But also, I would say, on that note, it's also very much a national symbol.
Yeah. I think accuracy that we saw on paper was like meh. It was like
It was okay.
it's okay. It wasn't anything super special. I know that this would not stabilize 77s. It was one of the initial videos where we were able to demonstrate.
But that's only for the civilian ones.
This is right. This one specifically is a 1.9, right? So
112.
Oh, one. This is a 112.
That's a 112, yeah.
What is this one a 112?
But that's a spicy one, so it's a 117.
1.7. Okay, so the 112 definitely would. Yeah, right. Okay, so that makes a lot more sense. I thought this was a 1.9 for some reason, but
No, it's a 112.
yeah. So back in the day, we tried shooting 77s with it, and they would not stabilize, and they were ripping apart at about 100.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know. I know this actually from pop culture.
Really?
There was now for the for the life of me I can't remember the name of the game. Okay, but like junior high. I think like either Valve or some sort of it was something on Steam back in the day, and this was the main gun you would spawn in with.
Was it in a Korean setting?
It was kind of a la Counter-Strike. It was like a Counter-Strike like spin-off type feeling thing, which is why my mind thinks like maybe Steam or Valve related. But yeah, this was like the main the base gun you started with, and we'll have to go dig. We'll have to go dig, Henry, or maybe you guys can go dig and let us know what the name of this game is. And then what about the front sight's relatively crude. It's a
fixed. You can't move it at all.
And it's relatively thick. Relatively thick. What do you think?
That doesn't bother
Anything
me
about that?
No, that doesn't bother me. I would prefer it to be thicker than to be slimmer in the front, just because I could work with wind a lot easier with the front.
That's an impact.
I'm happy with the rifle. I think honestly, with the performance and with the expectations of what the Korean soldiers use it for in the in Korean service, that actually fits very well. They shoot out to 200 meters for their soldiers, but remember those are conscripts.
Yeah,
those aren't professional.
Right.
So having a populace all being able to shoot the main Korean service rifle to 200 meters is actually, with the numbers considered, that's actually quite incredible. So I would say I'm happy with this. I wish it could have done a little bit better because of my emotional attraction to it. Yeah, I'm quite infatuated with the actual rifle itself. But as far as actual performance, I would accept it. Okay. It's decent.
Well, with that said, Henry, should we amp up the spice?
We should amp up the spice. Next ramen is coming up, and next spicy Korean K2. Tune in next week. We'll check this one out.
Guys, until next time, do all the good YouTube stuff, like, comment, subscribe. Let us know both the name of the video game and have you had hotel ramen? Army soup.
Stew.
Josh, Henry's Army hotel room ramen stew.
Josh, you haven't lived until you've tried this. Anyways, though, more coming up. We'll see you guys next week.
See you guys.
Kaji 92 broken down third eye yoji 기본 I just keep on cause I'm curb one Kaji I'm a globetrotter You and I 비교나 하지마 우리 너무 달라 we just different 나 좀 봐라
716 is Steel 96 4 Vic 8 packs Redcon 1 green to green how copy over
Steel 96 this is 716 roger over 16 Steel 91 1 pack green over this is 716 roger over
16 Steel 92 1 Victor 2 packs Redcon 1 over 716, this is Gillnet 6, 4 Vic, 8 packs, Redcon 1, green to green. How copy, over?
796, this is 716, roger, over. 16, 091, 1 pack, green, green, over. This is 716, roger, over.
16, 1892, 1 Victor, 2 packs, Redcon 1, over.